The tempers are so high, and all the people involved on the Israeli side, they want brutal revenge for everything that's been happened. And on the other side, on the Palestinian side, they are so bolstered by their success of what they've been able to achieve to take Israel completely by surprise on the anniversary of 50 years of the Yom Kippur War since this last happened. I think no one is really interested in listening to anyone at this point.
There are descriptions on the front page of the Sunday Times of Hamas terrorists armed with Kalashnikovs dragging captured Israeli citizens through the streets. Some of those kidnapped have been taken to Gaza to be met by jeering crowds. Others have been killed in their homes and cars. This morning, the Israel Defense Forces say it's carrying out strikes in Lebanon after shooting came from there into Israeli territory. Ina Lazareva is an investigative reporter in the Middle East and has co-written the front page story of the Sunday Times. With the Sunday Times' Louise Callahan. Ina joins us from Tel Aviv. Ina, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning.
Good morning.
Tel Aviv was hit last night, we understand. So first of all, just outline what has been happening where you are in the last, 12 hours or so.
Yes, well, it all started yesterday morning. Tel Aviv was hit right from the word go. From 6:30 in the morning, there were sirens and there were direct hits yesterday morning and last night as well. Last night at around 8 o'clock, there were two direct rocket hits. One house completely collapsed. People are absolutely terrified. The streets are eerily empty. No one is daring to go outside. The only sound you really hear, aside from the rocket sirens, are the sirens of ambulances and police cars roaming past. But the situation is most awful in the southern part of the country, where I spoke to numerous people yesterday who were literally holed up, unable to escape the safe rooms they were hiding out in. As Hamas fighters roamed outside with guns, breaking into houses, and as you mentioned, dragging people outside, either killing or kidnapping them and taking them back to the Gaza Strip. So the situation is extremely serious. Many people were completely caught unprepared. In their safe rooms, they didn't have any food. They had maybe a little bit of water. And some people were stuck in conditions like this for 9-10 hours until they were rescued. There are still some hostage situations going on until now. Israel operates a blackout on these particular, on the details of this, but we know this is going on.
Do we also understand that there is ongoing fighting on the ground? So as well as airstrikes and rocket attacks, we understood yesterday that militants had made their way in, on foot, by land, by sea, by air, indeed, but actually that there were people on the ground fighting. Is that an ongoing situation as well, as we understand?
Yes, this is also ongoing. When I spoke to the Israel Defense Forces yesterday, they couldn't give me the exact number of gunfights taking place, but they confirmed this was happening. And indeed, some army commanders and even a local politician was killed in a gunfight with Hamas fighters in southern Israel yesterday. But what is the most worrying development of this morning is the possible opening up of a new front in Lebanon. This morning, a mortar shell landed from Lebanon, was fired from Lebanon into Israel. It didn't cause any casualties, but Israel already started responding with artillery fire into Lebanon. Now, the reason why this is so worrying is that tensions have been building up between Israel and its northern neighbor Lebanon for quite some months now. There have been periodic shells fired and retaliation on both sides, and everyone is fearing that Hezbollah, the militia more or less in charge of Lebanon, is going to take advantage of this and is going to launch an attack from the northern front. And this will be much, much, much more serious than the attacks from Gaza so far, because Hezbollah is much more capable and much, much better armed. So this hasn't happened as yet. There's just a few exchanges of fire, but this is something we're all watching very, very carefully.
Ina, I'm about to ask a question which I suppose has been asked for decades, and so I realise that it might be futile. But given what you're saying there about the situation with Lebanon, at this stage, is there anyone, any leader, any country, anyone at all, who could mediate that situation to try to de-escalate?
Very difficult to say at this point. I simply don't know. At the moment, everything is so developing and the tempers are so high, and all the people involved on the Israeli side, they want brutal revenge for everything that's been happened. And on the other side, on the Palestinian side, they are so bolstered by their success of what they've been able to achieve to take Israel completely by surprise on the anniversary of 50 years of the Yom Kippur War since this last happened. I think no one is really interested in listening to anyone at this point. We all hope this will change in due course, but difficult to say when.
Of course. And I ask that in the context of what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said in he's made several sort of statements actually since all of this began, but the language he's been using has been really quite strong, also encouraging residents of Gaza to leave now because we will operate everywhere and in full force. So backing up really what you were saying there about the desire for some sort of revenge and probably of the most brutal kind.
Of course, completely nonsensical, as residents of Gaza have a very hard time leaving Gaza Strip. Benjamin Netanyahu is fighting for his political survival as well as fighting this war. He has been caught unaware. It was his government, the most right-wing in Israel's history, that brought about the series of judicial reforms that that has torn the country apart. Israel's been deeply in protest for the past 10 months, every week. People are angry at one another. And this is what many analysts are saying is the reason why Hamas has decided to attack now, because it perceives Israel as very, very weak. So many people are actually looking to the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and pointing the finger at him and saying, this is your fault.
I wonder then if there is any sort of suggestion that this, from a political point of view, I've read some articles in the last 12 hours considering exactly what you've said there, the context for Netanyahu, and whether this provides a moment of national unity in that it brings people together who, for the last number of months, as you say, have been really quite divided.
Possibly. There have been some approaches from some politicians to form a unity government, so as to set about a cabinet that is actually able to be better operational. As I mentioned earlier, the current government of Benjamin Netanyahu is extremely radical and right-wing, and some say full of ministers that are not exactly experienced in the task of war. So this. It could be an opportunity. Let's see what happens, but it can't erase the 10 months or so of pure fighting amongst Israelis, amongst Israeli leaders, amongst Israeli people on the ground, sometimes physical, very often verbal, as to what's been happening in Israel. So let's hope that they can get together to sort out the immediate situation so that the residents of particularly southern Israel and those kidnapped by Hamas, those families killed, can get some kind of a respite, but it's a long road ahead in terms of actual negotiated peace within Israel, never mind outside.
Of course. Inna, thank you very much for speaking to us. We're going to keep in touch with you, but thank you so much. Thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.
That is Inna Lazareva, an investigative reporter, in the Middle East, speaking to us from Tel Aviv.